I interviewed Mr. Costello on Thursday afternoon. I interviewed him on Thursday afternoon. I also did Sean Hannity's show on Thursday evening. And the reason why is this. You have a fast-moving trial in Manhattan. You have all kinds of analysis, all of it quite good, respecting Mr. Costello's public statements, his testimony before Congress, the fantastic interview with Bill Hemmer, and so forth. But I feel there's an essential element that's missing. An essential element that's missing. And I want to get this out as soon as I can because I think it's relevant to the trial, it's relevant to you and the rest of the American people. So with all that in mind, let's begin with my interview from Thursday with Mr. Costello. Robert Costello, welcome. You're the former Deputy Chief Criminal Division of the Southern District of New York. That's not a shabby position. I remember that was a big position when I was Chief of Staff to the Attorney General. I want to get right down to it, sir. You gave a interview earlier this morning, and I have the text here with Bill Hemmer, and I've gone through it in exquisite detail. But I want to hone in on a few issues with you for a reason. You represented Michael Cohen during the period in which the FBI SWAT went into his properties to gather information and evidence. Isn't that correct?
We represented him after that, right after that.
And he came to you, right?
That's correct.
And you got into conversations with him, what were privileged conversations, and we'll get to that in a minute. And the subject of Donald Trump came up and so forth and so on. Can you concisely tell me what he told you about the non-disclosure agreement and Stormy Daniels and who was responsible for what?
Michael Cohen said in reference to the NDAs, the non-disclosure agreements, which I pointed out to him were perfectly legal, that it was his idea to take care of this, not Donald Trump's idea, solely his idea, that Stormy Daniels' attorney, Davidson, contacted him and said that Stormy Daniels was going to claim that there was a sexual relationship between Stormy and Donald Trump. Cohen said he didn't believe the allegations, but he knew that they would be embarrassing. He specifically mentioned they'd be embarrassing to Melania. And so Cohen said that he decided on his own, and I repeat that, on his own, because that's what he said, and I kept on nailing him down on that. You did this on your own? Yes. Did Donald Trump have any knowledge of it? No. Did he have anything to do with it? No. Where did you get the $130,000? He took out a HELOC loan. I said, why would you do that? He said, I did that because I didn't want Melania to know anything about this, and I didn't want my wife to know. He said, if I took money out of our accounts, he said, my wife would know right away because she controls the family finances. And she'd ask me 100 questions that I didn't want to answer. So that's exactly how Michael Cohen summarized that. Donald Trump knew nothing about it, didn't encourage it, didn't do anything. This was solely Michael Cohen. Why would he do something like this? He was trying to ingratiate himself back into the inner circle, because when Trump got elected and went to Washington, D.C., he took his inner circle with him, except for Michael Cohen, who was left behind. This guy was angry about that. He actually had told me that he thought that if he went to Washington, D.C., he would be considered for Attorney General of the United States, or at least Chief of Staff to the President. Ludicrous. But because he didn't get that, he was looking for a way to get back in.
Can you think of any reason at all, you're his attorney during this period, why he would lie to you? Was there any benefit in him lying to you about it?
Absolutely not, especially because he told us he was suicidal at that point. He had been up on the roof of the Regency Hotel, seriously considering jumping off, because he saw this mountain of legal problems coming his way, and he didn't know how to deal with it. So he kept on saying to us that day, Bob, I need you to explain what's my escape route. How do I get out of this? Because I can't handle the pressure. And so, of course, I went through the steps and I told him that clearly he wasn't the target of what the Southern District of New York was doing, but the target was really Donald Trump. And I said, if you have any truthful information, and I emphasized that time and time again, because I said, Michael, these are very smart people down in the Southern District of New York. If you think you can go in there and tell them a half-truth or a three-quarter truth, you're crazy. They will find out and you'll burn bridges on both ends. The only way you can do this is with truthful information. So now is the time. If you have truthful information, You can cooperate. I'll get rid of all of your legal problems by the end of the week. I swear to God, Bob, I don't have anything on Donald Trump. He must have said that 10 to 20 times. You know, I lost count. Because in between then, he would also say, guys, I want you to know, because I was there with my law partner who knew Michael Cohen, I want you to know I will do whatever the F I have to do. I will never spend a day in jail. And he'd slam his hand on the conference room table. That's the kind of guy I was dealing with that day. There's no way he's going to lie.
I really want to hone in on something else. So you've laid the predicate. These are the facts. Really, he had no reason to lie to you, and you gave him every opportunity, really, to protect himself. And that would even mean, if necessary, implicating Donald Trump, and he didn't. Now, but I want to move on. You testified in front of the Bragg grand jury. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Michael Cohen had waived attorney-client privilege in writing, and you've presented that. You've shown it to the whole world, correct?
I have. Yes, that's correct.
You were the last witness to testify in front of the Bragg grand jury, to the best of your knowledge, correct?
To the best of my knowledge, that's correct.
And you testified in front of this grand jury. Were you actually free to testify, or were you, as you said when you came out of that testimony, you were repeatedly interrupted? They were repeatedly trying to shut you down. Is that correct, too?
That is correct. There were 8 assistant district attorneys in the room. 8. I've never seen that before.
You indicated, I saw earlier reports from a few years ago, with up to 300 or so emails, which is basically contemporary communications with Michael Cohen that would certainly collectively demonstrate that he was lying about material information that Mr. Bragg was looking into, correct?
Correct.
But they wouldn't introduce all 300 emails, would they? Is that correct?
They put 6 in. I objected. I said, aren't you going to put the remaining emails in right in front of the grand jury? And they said, we can't. I said, why not? They said, there's a legal problem. I said, really? What's that? He said, hearsay. Well, first of all, hearsay is admissible in grand juries. And I said, well, you just put 6 out of that package in. Why not put the rest in? These people, meaning the grand jury, are entitled to hear everything. They're entitled to see everything. And I had my own packet of the same materials. So they said, we can't put them in because they're hearsay. So I said, all right, if you think they're hearsay, listen carefully to my next 2 sentences. These documents were made in the regular course of business. And it was the regular course of business to make and maintain documents such as these at or about the dates indicated on the documents. I said, now you know, and I know, but the grand jurors don't know. That makes these documents business records. And you know, and I know, but the grand jury doesn't know. Business records are an exception to the hearsay rule if it was in effect. I said, so what's your next excuse? You think you should give these to the grand jury? And then I held up the packet to the grand jurors and I said, you people should demand these from the district attorney and then ask yourself, why are they keeping these from you?
Okay, so you had the packet. Apart from what the grand jury heard, the district attorney's office had all the emails, correct?
Correct.
So they could read over 300 emails, correct?
Of course, yes. The Friday, as a courtesy to show that I was being fair to them, as a courtesy, the Friday before I testified, I gave them an hour-and-a-half Zoom conference in which I was going to explain all of the exculpatory material that I had and why they should not proceed with this case. When the Zoom conference started, they told me that they had all of the evidence that I gave them. And they said, assume that we've read everything and understood everything. What do you want to say? And that's how they began. And I said, that's hardly a warm greeting for somebody who's trying to help you out.
This is very, very important for something that people are not focusing on, including the legal analysts. And it is this. Mr. Bragg and his prosecutors had every reason to know that when they put Cohen on the stand, that there were serious material issues in which you and perhaps others had presented evidence contrary to what he was going to say. That is, I'm making the point that they put him on the stand. He's lying in every respect, according to you and according to many other people, about what actually took place. They have your emails. They cut off your testimony when you were in the grand jury. And where I come from as an old chief of staff to an attorney general of the United States, this is a classic case of suborning perjury. I am saying to you, Mr. Costello, that they put this man on the stand, that they didn't seek an ex parte hearing before they put him on the stand with the judge to go through your emails or any evidence that they had, whether they gave it to the grand jury or not. They had your emails. They knew what you said. You are a credible witness. You're the former muckety-muck of the criminal division over there at the Southern District of New York. Your testimony to them persuaded them not to pursue the case, as I understand it, against Mr. Cohen. But Bragg and those 8 district attorneys, they didn't want you to say what you wanted to say in front of the grand jury. They didn't want to hear anything about the other emails that might harm their witness. They knew that he would get on the stand and that he would commit perjury. And where I come from, sir, and you've given me the elements of perjury, they didn't even bother to tell the judge, you know, we have this guy Costello. And we do have this, Your Honor, but we still think we should bring him on. They suborned perjury, which is a felony against the court. Now, what do you think about that, sir? Because I think that should be pursued.
I agree. I think at the very least, it's a motion to dismiss the indictment because they did not present all of the exculpatory evidence that they had. And they had very good reason to believe that Michael Cohen wasn't telling the truth. I told them that the Southern District of New York had obviously concluded that Michael Cohen wasn't telling the truth. I suggested to them that they should follow the Southern District's lead and drop this case. They had no interest in hearing my opinions or what I had to say. I told them when I was doing the Zoom conference on the Friday before my grand jury testimony, I said, are you people aware that Michael Cohen is coming out with a second book? I know you're probably aware of his first book. And I got blank looks from everybody. I said, well, I'll save you the effort. I'll tell you he's coming out with a book. Quite coincidentally, it's coming out next week, which is the week that you intend to indict Donald Trump. You think that's a coincidence? I said, don't you see that he's using you people to monetize his situation? He's using you to make money, and you're going along with it. You haven't done your due diligence. They had no interest in hearing that.
I think what's important for the American people to understand is that a prosecutor is not free to put somebody on the stand who they either know is a liar and is going to lie in his testimony under oath, or may well and has a propensity to lie under oath, because it destroys the whole idea of getting to the truth, and it's an attack on the judicial system and due process. And this prosecutor, Bragg, had 1,000 reasons to know that Mr. Cohen will go on that stand and commit acts of perjury, and you handed him the evidence with your emails. You handed him the evidence. It's not hearsay. He spoke to you, his lawyer. It's not you speaking to somebody else. He spoke to you. Do they not even know what hearsay is, even if it did apply, which it didn't? And they went out of their way to cut you off during your testimony. They withheld evidence from the grand jury, and they still indict Donald Trump on 34 counts. This is their star witness. They knew he was a liar, not just because a federal judge had said he's a liar, not just because he confessed to being a liar, not just because he was convicted of being a liar, because he lied to them. And they had every reason to know it. And they still put him on the stand. That's suborning perjury. And the way they could have gotten around it is to go to the judge and say, look, we have all this information about him. But if they did that, they knew he couldn't be their star witness. Final word, sir.
I think that's absolutely correct. This case never should have been brought. There's no theory under which this is a crime. In fact, I told Michael Cohen in our initial meeting when he brought up NDAs, I said, Michael, those are used every day. They're perfectly legal. There's nothing illegal with that. But since he said that Trump had nothing to do with his taking care of the Stormy Daniels situation, we didn't follow it up any further.
I want to thank you, sir, because obviously the usual left-wing kooks are out there attacking you and trying to attack your credibility, so it takes some guts to come forward. The only crime that was committed committed in that courthouse with the testimony of Michael Cohen and the crimes committed by the DA's office in suborning perjury. God bless you, my friend. Take care of yourself.
Want to see more Mark Levin? Go to levintv.com and subscribe now.